Territorial concessions might precede a ceasefire that leads to new Ukrainian elections. This is authored by Andrew Korybko via Substack. Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, told Reuters that he'd like to see Zelensky hold parliamentary and presidential elections, though that outlet's source in Kiev claimed that Washington has yet to formally request this of him. Ukrainian law stipulates that they cannot be conducted during times of martial law, ergo the need to first lift the martial law. That would not happen without a ceasefire, however, but therein lies the problem, since Russia's terms for such are unacceptable for Ukraine. Putin said last June that Russia will freeze hostilities only after Ukraine withdraws from all the territory that his country claims as its own and declares that it no longer wants to join NATO. Negotiations can resume immediately thereafter, but he specified at that time that they would have to be held in with the parliamentary speaker instead of Zelensky, whose legal term expired at the end of May, per Putin's reading of the Ukrainian constitution. And then he reiterated to this position last week, but added a twist. According to him, Zelensky could still hypothetically participate in negotiations, but he would be powerless to sign anything. This followed Zelensky's claiming that October 2022's prohibition on talks with Russia applied to everyone but himself. He then told the Associated Press over the weekend, around the same time as Kellogg's interview with Reuters, that he is interested in resuming talks with Russia, but does not think that it wants a ceasefire. Amidst these statements from Kellogg, Putin and Zelensky were trumps. He claimed that we are having a very serious discussion with Russia about that war, trying to get it ended, but said that he had not yet talked to Putin about it, thus implying that talks are only taking place at the embassy level. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov confirmed on the same day that there is no progress on organizing those leaders' upcoming call. Nevertheless, their inevitable conversation will likely concern a ceasefire, and particularly the compromise that Trump hopes to broker. This could see him proposing the following to Putin. 1. Ukraine withdraws from Kursk and Donbass, the latter of which is at the center of the territorial dispute with Russia, but stays where it is at everywhere else. 2. Neither side rescinds their territorial claims to each other. 3. A carrot and stick approach as applied towards Russia and Ukraine for ensuring compliance with a ceasefire. 4. Ukraine then holds its next elections. And 5. The new government enters into peace talks with Russia after assuming office. Ukraine can be coerced into agreeing to this by threatening to withhold military aid from it, while threats of maximally disbursing such to Ukraine, alongside the imposition of maximum secondary sanctions against Russia's top energy clients, China and India, could coerce it into compliance as well. As an incentive to Russia, which has been steadily advancing for the past 2 years, the U.S. might agree to demilitarize the Trans-Dnieper region and place it under the control of non-Western peacekeepers. That proposal forms one of the 24 compromises that were shared at the end of this analysis here, and was elaborated on the details. Its full implementation, or some variation thereof, might ultimately prove pivotal in terms of getting Russia to agree a ceasefire without Ukraine first completely complying with the terms that Putin shared just last June as regards withdrawing from all the territory that his country claims is its own. Trump's negotiators would therefore do well to seriously consider this proposal. If they get Ukraine and Russia to agree to a ceasefire, then the previously mentioned threats could remain as sticks for encouraging compliance, while the carrots could include more reconstruction aid to Ukraine and phased sanctions relief for Russia, and thus increasing the odds that it holds. As part of the perks for Russian compliance, the U.S. might even agree to let EU resume pipeline gas imports from Russia, whether via the remaining undamaged part of Nord Stream and or across Ukraine if it gets Kiev to agree. And as for the subsequent election steps in this process, the U.S. might prefer for Zelensky not to run for election. Otherwise, it could back one of his potential opponents as part of a phased leadership transition for facilitating a peace deal, which is premised on Putin wanting him out of the way. Between the hypothetical ceasefire and the next elections, Zelensky might still participate in talks, but Russia would not allow him to sign anything, so he would only take part in them for self-serving political reasons. In any case, illegal changes that Russia's declared goals of restoring Ukraine's constitutional neutrality and denazifying its society entail can only be advanced after the election legitimized a new parliament, which could then bring about these under U.S. pressure, the second goal perhaps only partially. Prior to that, the size of the armed forces could be curtailed in partial compliance with Russia's demilitarization goal as a trust-building measure, but Russia's spring 2022 demands might not ever be met in full. As can be seen, Trump's plan to broker a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia mostly depends on the second's agreement, since the first can be much more easily coerced into this, thus necessitating pragmatic compromises that satisfy some of Putin's ceasefire demands from last June. And this could take the form of forcing Ukraine into withdrawing from Donbass, seriously considering a demilitarization Trans-Dnieper region controlled by non-Western peacekeepers, and promising phased sanctions relief. Putin might agree to these terms if they're accompanied by threats of maximally dispersing military aid to Ukraine, alongside the imposition of maximum secondary sanctions against Russia's top energy clients, China and India. He's continually proven his preference for avoiding escalations, notably reaffirming last November through Russia's unprecedented use of the hypersonic Oreshniks for de-escalation purposes via the U.S., while a sizable share of Russia's budgetary revenue is dependent on Asian energy imports. These factors would work in Trump's favor if he proposes the ceasefire terms that were discussed together with the threatened consequences if Putin rejects them. The path to peace will predictably be paved by a ceasefire, which will itself likely require some territorial concessions on Ukraine's part in order for Putin to agree to compromise on his associated demands. Then new elections can be held for legitimizing peace talks. And this is the most realistic sequence for diplomatically ending the conflict. I think all this will be achieved because they will have a non-Western group in the demilitarized zone. This is by Andrew Corbico via Substack on Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.